Hi, I'm Dana Green Remedios. I'm a registered holistic nutritionist, a natural nutrition consultant practitioner, and a product information specialist. And today, on behalf of Flora, I would like to answer some questions posed by you about probiotics. So I'd like to thank everyone who submitted such thoughtful questions. I'm sure that many people will benefit from getting the answers to these questions, and not just the people who pose them. So thank you so much. And with that, let's jump right in. So what's our first question? What do they do for you, or how do they work? So probiotics are known to be able to confer a health benefit on humans. So the ones that Flora chooses to use are those that have been identified in healthy humans and are known to confer some kind of health benefit. And we know that they can do so many different things in our body. To look at the big picture of what they do, our digestive tract is actually the place where our bodies interact with the outside world the most and get the most information from the outside world because unlike our skin, which really works more like a barrier, our intestinal tract is actually a place where we produce most of our neurotransmitters. It's where we have most of our immune system. That's where it resides. And when we have different things that come into our bodies, then that's where our microbiome is going to interact and give us information about whether whatever came into our bodies is useful or dangerous, and whether we should mount an immune response or whether we should digest it. And then based on what kind of microbes you have in your body, you may have different kinds of production of neurotransmitters, or they may produce different kinds of compounds. For example, they're responsible for making many of our B vitamins, they make short-chain fatty acids, and lots of other interesting compounds, which I'll tell you a little bit more about as I answer some of these other questions that have been asked. Thanks. So I'm going to move on to question number 2. So question 2 is, what do strain specific mean, or specific strains mean? And so in science, we've got a classification from the top down of the broadest, which would be your kingdom or your domain, which would be where the bacteria are. And as you go down narrower, kingdom, phylum, class, genus, all the way down to species, and eventually the strain is the most specific information that Flora could give you about the probiotic that you're going to take. So we know it's bacteria, we know the phylum is Bacteroides, for example, or we know that the genus might be Lactobacillus, for example, but within the genus of Lactobacillus, there could be 200 different species. And so what Flora is going to do is, when they pick their Lactobacillus for their formulas, they tried out 95 different types of Lactobacillus acidophilus before they chose the one that they include in the formula. And then on the package, they make sure to give you all the information, not just general amounts, but like the specific amount that's in there of the exact strain that they've included, so that you know that what benefits you might be getting from that strain, or you know exactly what it is that you're getting. So the second part of this question is, with many different amounts of billion cells per capsule or per product, how do you know which one to take, and does more mean better? So this is a great question. And so primarily what you're looking for with bacteria is they're kind of like the microbiome's seeds for growing a healthy garden. And so part of the equation is the seeds, and part of it's the terrain. The seeds are really the most important part. You need good quality, viable seeds that are going to grow really well. And if you have that, which means that you have the right kind of strains of probiotics and they're very good quality, then you're always going to be able to grow them, and they're going to reproduce very rapidly. So because of that, the potency is kind of a secondary issue. But potency becomes more of an issue if you're very immunocompromised, or you have perhaps an inflammatory condition or some kind of illness or infection. So if you have infection or inflammation, which means anything ends in itis, like colitis, diverticulitis, then you may want to get more potency because your terrain is not as healthy and able to support the seeds that you're putting in there. I hope that makes sense. So does more mean better? Not all the time. So jumping into question number 3, do you have to refrigerate, or what is the difference between shelf stable and refrigerated, and is one better than the other? So we do recommend that you consider the question of whether you need a refrigerated probiotic or not. If you're going to be traveling a lot, then certainly a shelf-stable one has a lot of advantages. But the main differences between refrigerated or shelf-stable is that the shelf-stable ones have been given extra excipients or protection inside the capsules. They've also been through an extra drying step, which enables them to be a little more secure and able to survive better. We're also going to select for a shelf-stable probiotic the hardiest type of bacteria or maybe a yeast, something that isn't is more unlikely to have a bad shelf life in a warm environment. And so all probiotics do prefer the cold, but shelf-stable probiotics have been engineered in such a way that we know that they will survive if you follow the package directions. So it's more that you want to pick the specific strains that are the most likely to help you at this particular time. So you might want a shelf-stable one even if you're not traveling, if you're perhaps in the hospital or somewhere where you don't have a refrigerator and you need those kind of strains that are going to protect you against pathogenic bacteria, or you might need a refrigerated probiotic. It might be one that gives you the type of strains like some of the bifido strains that don't do so well when they're left at room temperature. So I hope that helps. So we're going to move on to question number 4. So question 4 is, what is the difference between a prebiotic and a probiotic? So this is another great question. We're hearing a lot about probiotics, prebiotics, and even postbiotics these days. So the prefix pre, of course, means prior to or before, and so it's the thing that comes before the probiotic, and that is the fuel or the food. So when we were talking about the terrain, your internal environment is also going to be, it's going to be important to get the food right for the probiotics. So they enjoy eating a wide variety of foods that are unprocessed, whole foods. So if you can make sure to eat them, that's the best prebiotic that you can give your probiotics. There's also some other prebiotics that might be naturally occurring in some herbs or plants. And if you ingest those regularly along with your probiotics, it might help to grow your probiotics more efficiently. So some of those might be something like inulin, for example, can be found in food or in supplements. And then postbiotics is what the probiotics make. So the only part of this equation that's alive are the probiotics. The prebiotics and the postbiotics are compounds. Some of the compounds they might make for us are those B vitamins or short chain fatty acids or other things like that, like interferon. So I hope that helps. We're going to go to question number 5. Should you take a probiotic daily, or how often should you take them? So with Flora's probiotics, they are known to be human adapted, so they're going to adhere really well to the intestinal lining, and that means that they may last for 2, 3, 4 days. So if you were to miss a day by accident, or you went away for the weekend and you didn't bring your probiotics, you're probably still protected in that time. You probably still have growing and adhering beneficial bacteria. But there are so many daily assaults on our digestive system and on our microbiome, things like chlorinated water or antibiotics in food, or antibiotics or other medications that you might be taking really diminish our bacteria. And so you may want to take your probiotics on a daily basis. The more of these types of assaults that you are exposed to, the more important it might be for you to take a daily probiotic, and especially if you're exposed to somebody's antibiotics, then to take them more than one time a day as well. And finally, question number 6, is there any medication that probiotics would interfere with? So no, there's no known interference of probiotics with your medications. However, there is the inverse, like I was just speaking to. A lot of medications can interfere with your probiotics. This includes SSRI, antidepressants. This is proton pump inhibitors, or PPIs. It can also be things like laxatives. It can also be things of course, the antimicrobials, the antibiotics, antifungals, and things like that. So if you're taking anything like that, it might be a good idea to make sure you take a daily probiotic for sure, and maybe even space it away from the other medications that you take. I hope that answers your questions. Thanks again so much for submitting them. I look forward to answering more of your questions in future videos. Bye for now.